Morning mist lingered above the Vltava River, wrapping the old city of Prague in a veil of silver gray. The Charles Bridge stretched across the water like a timeless memory, its stone statues watching silently as if guarding centuries of secrets. Aahil, a young traveler far from home, paused in the middle of the bridge. The weight of his backpack was nothing compared to the heaviness inside his chest. Leaving his country had not been an escape, but a search for something he could not yet name. The air was crisp, carrying with it the faint toll of distant church bells. He rested his hand on the cold stone railing, staring at the ripples below, when he noticed her. She sat on the side of the bridge with a sketchbook on her lap, the soft light catching strands of her hair. Pencil strokes moved quickly across the page, her eyes shifting between the river and the paper. There was a quiet intensity about her, like someone who belonged to this city, yet lived in her own hidden world. Their eyes met for a moment. She smiled, faintly, as though she had already seen the sadness he carried. "Beautiful morning, isn't it?" Aahil said, breaking the silence. "Yes," she replied, her voice low, almost melodic. "But mornings can feel heavy when the heart is not free." Her words struck him more deeply than he expected. She looked down at her sketch, then turned the book toward him. On the page, the river and bridge were drawn with delicate lines, but at the edge, she had sketched a figure standing alone, looking lost. Aahil blinked, startled. "That looks like me." "Perhaps," she said with a mysterious smile. "Or perhaps it is just what I see in the river today." He chuckled softly, though something about her words lingered inside him. "Do you live here?" he asked. "I live everywhere and nowhere," she replied. "But today, Prague is home. My name is Katerina." "Aahil," he introduced himself. And for a moment, the world seemed to pause between them. The statues, the mist, the river, everything became a silent witness to a beginning neither of them had planned. The morning sun finally broke through the fog, painting the city in shades of gold. Yet for Aahil, it was not the light of the sun that warmed him, but the unexpected presence of a stranger who felt, somehow, familiar. And so, his journey began not just across Europe, but into the quiet depths of his own heart. The train rolled gently through the heart of Europe, fields of gold and forests of green rushing past the window. Aahil sat quietly, watching the blur of the world, his thoughts drifting back to the bridge in Prague. He could still see Katerina's faint smile, still hear the way her words had cut through him like a secret only she could read. They had spoken only briefly, yet something about her presence lingered like a song half remembered. In his pocket was a folded page she had torn from her sketchbook. On it, she had drawn the river, the bridge, and a single line beneath: "If you follow the music, Vienna will guide you." And so, Vienna it was. The city welcomed him with the soft glow of afternoon light. Stephansdom rose high above the square, its Gothic spire cutting into the sky, while street performers filled the air with violin and accordion melodies. Vienna was alive with music, every corner humming as if the city itself was breathing in symphony. Aahil wandered aimlessly, until a familiar voice called from behind, "You took my advice." He turned, and there she was, Katerina. Her scarf fluttered in the cool breeze, and her sketchbook was once again in her hands. "I wasn't sure if this was coincidence," he said, smiling, "or destiny." "Perhaps both," she replied with a shrug. Vienna is a city of encounters. That evening, they walked together through narrow cobblestone lanes, past the warm glow of coffee houses where poets once wrote, and into the grand halls of Schönbrunn Palace. Katerina spoke of art, of how every building in Vienna seemed to carry whispers of forgotten stories. Aahil listened, realizing that he was not just exploring a city, he was exploring the layers of her world. When night fell, they stood on the banks of the Danube River. The water shimmered with golden reflections of the city lights. Silence stretched between them, not heavy, but tender like the pause between notes in a song. Finally, Katerina spoke. "Why are you really here, Aahil?" What is it that you're searching for? He looked at the water, then at her. For a long time, I've been carrying a silence inside me. I thought Europe would fill it, but maybe I'm just searching for someone who can hear it. Their eyes held each other's for a moment too long, and then, gently, her hand brushed against his. She didn't pull away. Neither did he. The Danube kept flowing, endless and eternal, as if promising that their journey had only just begun. The train entered Paris at dusk, the city glowing under a soft golden haze. From the window, Aahil saw the iron silhouette of the Eiffel Tower, its lights beginning to flicker against the fading sky. He felt a sudden rush of awe. Paris, the city he had always imagined but never believed he would see. Katerina was already waiting for him at Gare du Nord. She stood among the crowd with her sketchbook pressed to her chest, as if the city itself might slip away if she didn't hold on to it. "You made it," she said softly. "Of course," he smiled. "I told you I'd follow the music." They walked through the winding streets of Montmartre, where artists painted portraits under glowing lanterns, and lovers sat on the steps of Sacré-Cœur Basilica, whispering promises into the night. Paris seemed endless, every corner alive with color and sound. For a moment, it felt as though the city belonged only to them. But Paris, like every city, carried its own shadows. One evening, while sitting at a small cafe along the Seine River, Aahil noticed the way Katerina grew quiet. She no longer sketched with her usual fluid strokes. Her eyes avoided his, as though carrying a weight she had tried to hide. "Katerina," he asked gently. "What's wrong?" She looked at him, and in her gaze he saw both warmth and distance. "There's something I haven't told you," she said, her voice trembling slightly. The words hung heavy in the Paris air, louder than the laughter of passers-by, louder than the soft strum of a nearby guitarist. "I didn't meet you by chance in Prague," she continued. "I was looking for you." Aahil froze. "Looking for me? But how could you?" Katerina shut her sketchbook firmly, her hands trembling. "There are things you don't know yet, Aahil. Things about why you came here and why I'm with you. Paris is not just about love. Sometimes it is about truths we are afraid to face." The lights of the Eiffel Tower sparkled in the distance, but for Aahil, the city no longer felt as simple or as romantic as it had hours before. Something deeper was stirring in adventure wrapped in mystery, with Katerina at its very heart. The night air in Paris was cool, carrying with it the scent of rain-soaked cobblestones and fresh bread from a nearby boulangerie. Yet Aahil barely noticed. Katerina's words still echoed in his mind. "I didn't meet you by chance. I was looking for you." They walked in silence along the Seine River, the glowing reflections of street lamps rippling in the water. Finally, Aahil stopped, turning toward her. "Katerina," he said firmly, "I need the truth. Why me? How could you possibly have been looking for me?" She hesitated, clutching her sketchbook as if it were her only anchor. Slowly, she opened it not to a new page, but to one already filled. Aahil's breath caught. It was a drawing of him, not from Prague, not from Vienna, but from years ago, his childhood face, younger, softer, unmistakably his. Aahil stepped back, confused. How do you have this?" Her voice shook as she explained. "My mother was an artist. She traveled. She painted people, places, lives she touched only for a moment. Before she died, she left me this sketchbook, and inside, among dozens of strangers, there was you." Aahil's heart pounded. "But that's impossible. I never met her." "Maybe you don't remember," Elena whispered. "Or maybe it wasn't you she met. But something about you, she saw something she believed I would need to find." She closed the book and looked at him, her eyes glistening in the lamplight. "I thought it was just a coincidence at first, but when I saw you on the bridge in Prague, standing exactly as she had drawn, I knew I couldn't let you disappear." Silence stretched between them, heavy and fragile. Aahil's chest tightened. The journey he thought was his alone was now tangled with a past he didn't understand. Katerina's presence was no longer just fate, it was a thread woven into his story long before he had ever set foot in Europe. For the first time since leaving home, Aahil felt something stir within him, not just longing, but fear. What if this journey wasn't about finding himself? What if it was about uncovering a truth he was never meant to know? The Eiffel Tower sparkled again in the distance, but this time its light seemed more like a warning than a promise. The train slid into Italy as dawn painted the horizon in shades of rose and gold. By the time Aahil and Katerina stepped off at Santa Lucia station in Venice, the city greeted them with its labyrinth of canals and the gentle lapping of water against stone. For Aahil, Venice felt dreamlike boats drifting like shadows, bridges arching like whispers, and narrow alleyways where time seemed to stand still. Yet even amidst the beauty, he carried the unease of Katerina's confession. They wandered together through the winding streets, the sound of water replacing the noise of traffic. Katerina's eyes seemed lighter here, as if Venice soothed her. "Why Venice?" Aahil asked as they crossed the Rialto Bridge, watching gondolas float below. "My mother always said Venice was a city that remembers," Katerina replied. "Every stone, every ripple of water holds a story. I thought, maybe here, we could find the piece of your story that I don't understand." That evening, they took a gondola ride. Lanterns glowed on the canals, casting golden reflections across the water. The silence between them was not heavy, it was tender, fragile, like an unspoken truth hanging just out of reach. Aahil looked at Katerina, her hair catching the glow of passing lights, her sketchbook resting on her lap. "Katerina, do you ever think this is more than coincidence? That maybe we were meant to find each other?" She met his gaze, her eyes soft. "I don't know if I believe in fate, Aahil, but I believe in moments, and this feels like one I don't want to lose." Her words melted into the night, and for the first time, Aahil reached for her hand fully, not by accident, not in hesitation. She let him. The city seemed to sigh, as though Venice itself approved. But beauty never comes without shadow. As the gondola slipped under a bridge, Aahil glanced up and caught a figure watching them from the dark archway. A man half hidden, his eyes fixed on them with unsettling intent. A chill ran through him. When he looked again, the figure was gone. "Katerina," he said quietly, "has anyone ever followed you before?" She stiffened, her fingers tightening around his. She didn't answer. The gondola glided forward, but Aahil could feel it now. Their journey was no longer just about discovery. Someone, somewhere, did not want them to uncover the truth. And Venice, with all its beauty, was suddenly full of secrets. The following morning, Venice was cloaked in mist. The canals were quieter than usual, gondolas drifting slowly like ghosts across the water. Aahil and Katerina walked side by side through a narrow alley, the sound of their footsteps echoing against ancient walls. Yet Aahil couldn't shake the memory of the man he had seen watching them the night before. "Katerina," he said carefully, "I need you to be honest with me. Is there something you haven't told me? Something more than the sketchbook?" She hesitated. "There are pieces of my mother's past I never understood. People she knew, places she traveled. Sometimes I think she left me more than just drawings. Maybe she left me unfinished stories." They turned a corner and stepped into St. Mark's Square. The basilica towered above them, its mosaics shimmering even under the gray sky. Street performers played violins, and pigeons scattered as children ran across the stones. But Aahil's eyes caught something else. A man stood near the edge of the square, wearing a Venetian mask, gold and white, with sharp, hollow eyes. He wasn't part of the performers. He wasn't smiling. He was watching. And not just watching them. That night, Aahil and Katerina stayed in a small guest house overlooking a quiet canal. Rain tapped softly against the window as Katerina sketched, her pencil moving quickly, almost nervously. "What are you drawing?" Aahil asked. She turned the page toward him. It wasn't the canal, it wasn't the square, it was the masked man. "You saw him too," she whispered. Aahil felt a chill. "How do you know what he looked like?" "Because," Katerina said, her voice trembling, I've seen him before. In Vienna. And once in Prague. He's been following us since the beginning. The room grew silent, except for the rain. For the first time, Aahil realized their journey was no longer just about finding meaning or love, it was about survival. And somewhere in the fog of Venice, a stranger in a mask was waiting.